Hey guys, so Snyder Cut comes out in 2 days, so in celebration, I thought we'd go through each of the DC Extended Universe films to see how I would rank this new endeavor. Now, before we start this list, I'm going to let you know that I really don't enjoy the majority of these films. Of all the cinematic universes so far, this one has had the most missteps, and yet continues to be the default third place, I guess, behind Marvel and maybe Star Wars. So, let's just get to the list with number 9. So before making this list, I was considering going back through the DCEU, and as soon as I thought about it, I said no, because it would mean that I would have to rewatch Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad is without a doubt one of the worst blockbusters ever, no hyperbole. I've rewatched all of these films at least once, except for this one. I saw it in the cinemas 5 years ago, and I've never wanted to take another look at it. This is a classic lesson in just how to not do a lot of things. How to edit a film, how to craft a story, how to build characters, how to create a villain, how to build a universe, and just simple storytelling features. To me, this film is a movie with a first act and then an eternally lasting second act. The one good scene in the film is them in the bar, which then gets ruined by Rick Flag talking about how much he loves the Enchantress, and his character is one of the worst examples of walking exposition in a movie. The endless pop songs, the on-screen chyrons, the first half an hour which is so ridiculously incoherent, Jared Leto's terrible Joker, the non-existent chemistry between the actors, and one of many examples of DC looking at Marvel and going, hey, we want that, and then just manipulating the director's vision through the editing to make some Frankenstein's monster of a film. It is awful. I really wasn't sure about where I would put this film when I sat down to rank these films. However, on revisiting Wonder Woman 1984, I realized how little this film offers on rewatch. Sure, the film does have some new concepts in terms of villains and how they toy with the protagonists, even the resolution of the film and the fact that no one dies, but unfortunately I don't remember seeing a film which was so relentlessly boring in a long time. The plot has far more questions than answers, and not in a good way. The film has so many weird and lengthy speeches about truth and power and stuff that just goes through one ear and out the other. The action, while being fun and campy in the opening act, is not followed through on. There are many weird moral questions about Steve and Diana's actions towards that guy he possesses. I love Gal Gadot in her first movie, but really, something felt off here, and she was definitely giving it her all. However, there was no character arc for her to go on by herself, so they just brought Steve back. She pulls new powers out of literal thin air for the sake of the plot with minimal setup, and ultimately we end up with a film that tries to do so much and achieves so little. Now, I'm surprised in myself at how low I ranked this one, but every time I watch Man of Steel, I realize something weird. I enjoy the idea of the film, and that's about it. While the idea of taking a Superman origin film in a dark and gritty direction could be cool, the film seems to get lost up its own ass. The film starts off alright on Krypton, but once we get to Earth, we just are fed scene after scene of people telling Clark how special he is and just spurting lofty dialogue for the trailers. The action scenes are one of the greatest examples of excess in cinema history, and the Smallville fight on its own is a great third act battle. But the Metropolis battle is even more ridiculous and over the top than even the Transformers movies. The performances are all good, and this film has a ridiculous amount of potential, but I think that Zack Snyder's need for creating the most incredibly epic movie ever got in the way of a simple exploration of Superman's character. The character of Clark is a quiet dick who no one can relate to. The film has no charm, and while I'm not saying this has to be a Christopher Reeve Superman film, this movie just does not contain an ounce of hope or inspiration for the audience. However, a saving grace of this film is the Hans Zimmer score. It's one of my favorites of all time, and really one of the only reasons I ever come back to this. Now, I struggled where to put BVS and Man of Steel, but in the end, Batman vs Superman has more to like, but also a lot more to hate. The highlights mostly come in the form of Hans Zimmer's score again, and of course Ben Affleck's Batman. It's a new and more tortured take on the character, and it spends a good deal of time doing detective work. The action scenes are more focused and less concerned with the overall scale, and an emphasis on the personal moments and the strikes and hits. However, This film is a fucking mess. This tries to be a Superman sequel, a Batman movie, a Wonder Woman introduction, a Justice League prequel, a detective film involving Lois and Superman, as well as having Lex Luthor's ridiculously confusing plot, flash forwards to Darkseid and Steppenwolf, bringing back Zod, Doomsday, romances, the death of Superman, and in the midst of that, a film where Batman and Superman punch each other, which was enough as its own movie. But really, this is DC trying to catch up with Marvel over the length of one film, and ultimately, this franchise is still suffering from it. The characters all have minimum development, and it includes new character actions which can piss off even the most casual of comic fans. In terms of these Trojan horse style films of setting up future films, this is the worst by an absolute mile. Yep. Justice League is above BVS, and it's because while Batman v Superman is depressingly bad, Justice League is just fucking weird. Everything about it, the characters, the story, the villain, the score, the lighting, the visual effects, the opening credits. Everyone knows the sad story behind this film, but the end result is an oddly timed 1 hour, 59 minutes and 59 second film by Warner Bros., which is one of cinema's weirdest end products. I honestly don't get offended by this movie as other DC fans do, because at least there are scenes where Joss Whedon's quick dialogue is coming through. I kinda like the Superman fight. The Flash is an alright character and does give a few laughs, although I am scared to see how he functions in his own movie. But the film's biggest struggle is the rushed development of its characters. Cyborg, Flash, Aquaman, and including Wonder Woman, who hasn't been around in like 100 years, means that you get a frantically paced movie that feels like it wants to get over and done with as much as we do. Birds of Prey is really inoffensive, and that's why it's so high. The film has a few neat action scenes and does make use of its R rating, however its own reliance on the Deadpool-esque fourth wall breaking gets really grating. The ensemble of characters is once again super rushed, and outside of Harley Quinn, the film never really lets you get to know any of the other characters except for what we're shown through flashbacks like in Suicide Squad. I do appreciate the visual flair and the ridiculous nature of some scenes, and that fight in the funhouse is really impressive, but ultimately it's just another DC film that falls flat. Well, that took a while. Finally to the films I kinda like. Aquaman, as I've said multiple times, is one of the most movies to ever movie. This movie, not film, has just about everything a blockbuster could have. Superheroes, family rivalries, villains, a love story, one-take spinning action scenes, laser sharks, massive seahorses, sci-fi underwater cities, tridents, pitbull songs, dinosaurs, Jango Fett, yahoos! Giant monsters voiced by Julie Andrews, and everything in between. The movie is a real fun cinema experience, and while this film definitely didn't hold up on multiple small screen viewings, this film is as high as it is because the first viewing, and I had a blast watching this dumbass movie. The visual flair is all out there, and this film is ridiculously ambitious, and I gotta respect that. Wonder Woman was the first time DC made a movie that, well, I'll let these guys sum it up.
DC has made a film that apparently isn't terrible! What? Oh my...
But this was the first time DC took time, developed a character, made you connect with them, relate to them, experience their journey and their arc, and ultimately have fun in a movie. Gal Gadot gave her all as Wonder Woman, and the emotional core of this film being her and Steve's romance creates a really compelling and sweet dynamic. The film has one of the most iconic superhero scenes of all time, and deservedly so, has become a cultural landmark, as for the first time ever we had a female superhero movie that wasn't a crowning turd. While the first two acts are really solid, the third act and villain twist really weigh down what is an otherwise incredibly solid entry, and the reason that the DCEU isn't dead. Yet. Shazam is the first time DC tried to make a fun movie that felt like its own thing, and instead of aping off a Marvel quip-style humor, they made their own coming-of-age comedy. It has great messages of acceptance and family and great performances from children in a movie. The action always has an emphasis on saving people, and the film is such a great exploration of their powers. The film embraces its silly elements, and ultimately, it's through these simple steps that DC created its best film of their new endeavor. So thanks for watching, guys. What's your ranking of the DC Universe films? We'll be putting out a couple more DCEU vids with the Snyder Cut coming out, so please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the Young Cynics to be updated for that, and see you next time.